Good morning and welcome to Mornings with Mary. It is Friday, the day before St. Patty's Day, hence why we are wearing green today. If you are new here, thank you for stopping in. I hope you enjoy our talk today. And if you're returning, welcome back. If you have any questions, you can always leave them in the comments below. Give me a heart, give me a thumbs up, even give me a thumbs down. I'd love to know what you're thinking. If you are watching this on the replay, make sure to let me know where you're from because I go through all the comments every day and I answer them. So, without any further ado, it is an Ask Me Anything Friday, and today's topic is going to be passive versus active learning. So, with that, I'm going to get rid of my very cute filter for which I have such big eyes. It's almost so much better to see you with. And get started because I think this is a great topic and one that is so often misunderstood. So what is it that you want to know about the difference between passive and active learning? It really is something that we are taught that learning, I know, I so much like that filter, don't you? We are taught that learning needs to be passive. That's when we are learning. So what does that mean? That means, well, where we sit down as the students, we sit, we listen, we do as someone says, right? That's passive. We often live our lives in a passive way. And we are taught that this is the best way to learn. Give me some examples of some passive learning. Well, worksheets. Good morning. Worksheets are passive learning. Having to answer questions that someone else has created is passive learning. Being able to do things where I'm going to call it the carrot and the stick. Okay, so someone puts a reward out here and you do it to get that reward. Well, how does that dynamic create a desire and a love for learning? It really doesn't. It actually creates like this ability to bully. And it gets really, really kind of crazy. So I want to read to you a quote that got me thinking about this morning and why I chose this topic. So it's by John Holt, which is one of my favorite authors. And it says, it's from the book Birds Fly, Fish Swim, Man Thinks and Learns. That says a lot right in the title, doesn't it? But the quote goes like this. Therefore, we do not need to motivate children into learning by wielding bribing or bullying. We do not need to keep picking away at their minds to make sure they are learning. What we need to do, and we all need to do, is bring as much of the world as we can to their lives. Give children as much help and guidance as they ask for. Listen respectfully when they feel like talking, and then get out of the way. We can trust them to do the rest. So this started me thinking, like, what does that really mean? Like, why do we have time constraints on subjects? Why do we determine what subjects they learn? And how does that make them want to be active learners? Because I remember I was not active at all in my learning. I was just told what to do. And some people really like that. Like Mr. Man out there, it's Friday, hence I'm in the bedroom. Mr. Man really likes to be passive. I swear, when he sits on the couch, there are these vines that like come up and wrap his hiney, and he doesn't move at all. I love my man, good morning, but he's very passive. And passive learning works fantastic for him. He really enjoys being told what to do and how to do it. But it's never then stretched him. So passive learning is learning for which there is an incentive that someone else has determined, where information is given to the child, and where they have no say in what happens. So it's actually not retained. And this has been proven over and over. Good morning, Regina. It's been proven over and over again that passive learning actually doesn't stay. It doesn't stick. All right? So our current school model is very passive. We sit, we listen, we do what we're told. And what I don't understand about this, and this is just my own personal view, is then at 17 or 16, we tell these kids, well, now you have to go pick a major and you have to determine what you want to do. Good morning, sweetheart. Well, how can they know what it is that they want to do if they've been told to sit still, be quiet, and have no opinion on anything in their life? They've been told their entire lives to be passive. But now you're 16. Suddenly start being active in your learning, but actually be passive at the same exact time. Like, go actively look at colleges, right? Let's go out, parents, go make those appointments, go talk to everyone. But you still have no say in what you're learning. You have no say in how you learn it. You have no say in what you do. But we want you to be active, even though we've never taught you to have any opinion. So then we send our kids off to college with no idea what to do. And now their professors are like, well, you need to know how to do the quadratic function of this, this, and this, and you have to write an opinion paper, and you need to have it graded, and blah, 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 blah. Well, shit, they don't even know how to cook ramen frickin' noodles. They don't even know if they like ramen noodles, because guess what? They were never involved in even making dinner at home. Their entire life, they're told to sit down, shut up, and follow directions, and then, like at 18, they're supposed to know everything. How? How? And how is this fair? This is so not fair to them. We expect them to know what they're doing when we've never given them the opportunity to make choices in their life in small teaspoons as they grow up in a way that they can handle it. Because guess what? They're gonna fuck up. I gotta tell you, they're gonna mess up making their decisions. They're gonna fall flat on their face. And 9 out of 10 times, they do that at college. And they're doing that on generally your money. And then they're partying, and they're going out, and they're making bad choices, and they're flunking classes, and they're dropping out of classes. Why? Because they were never taught to be active in their learning or active in their decisions down to how do you make mac and cheese? You boil the frickin' water, all right? We have created an entire generation for like the last 100 plus years that knows nothing about themselves. And then we sit back as parents and we blame them. Bullshit. I call BS on that. All right, I'm not bald. I can't say, I call BS. Elizabeth's out with dogs, so I can't have her call it either. Total and utter BS. Mamas, pick up your big girl panties and get those kids to make decisions. Get them active in their own learning. Get them thinking, all right? So Finland is the #1 school system in the entire world. Now, personally, I wouldn't want to live there. It's cold as hell for me. But these kids go outside and play for an hour a day in 20 below weather. They probably have much better clothes than we do in the U.S. because we're not situated for this. But think about this. Every day, those kids go out there and they're actively playing. They have a say in their education. They don't even start to learn how to read until they're 7 or 8 years old. Why? Because the brain's not ready to decode. There are these abstract signs that mean nothing. I mean, I could tell you a Z is actually a Q if you were 3 years old and you'd know no different. So again, it's all this passive learning that leads to no opinions. Finland, by 2020, I love this. So there is this thing, excuse me, in the homeschool world called unit studies. And unit studies mean you take a topic, let's say horses, okay? I know nothing about horses, but that's why I'm choosing it. And then you work your math, your social studies, your science, your language arts, all around that horse. But the child gets to choose that subject. So they're not told, well, you don't have to learn anything. They're told, you pick the topic. Then we're going to show you how to learn about it. Kind of revolutionary. We do this all the time at homeschool. Why it's revolutionary for a school, I don't know. But our entire society is built upon being passive. Worksheets, passive learning. What investment does your child have in their education? Are they doing this just for someone else? Or are they doing it because they themselves are impassioned and inspired? Do you want to raise a passive child? Some people really do. They really want to raise another cog in the wheel. Totally cool. And some kids can only ever be cogs in a wheel. Totally cool. That's awesome. Like, yay. I don't have cogs. I don't know. I don't even think they know what a wheel is. All right. So if you have a child that is not a cog, that is not a wheel, how can you do it? Good morning, Becky. We were just talking about active versus passive learning and how our current school system is set up to be all passive, how our parenting is set up to be passive, and then we're angry that our kids don't know jack shit. We're angry because they don't even know how to make mac and cheese. Well, whose fault is that? We get upset because they don't know anything about themselves. Well, whose fault is that? Because we're afraid to take the risk? Because we're totally afraid to say, hey, I'd like you to have an opinion. And then we get upset if it's different than ours, because that's not what I taught you. Okay, so what? It's not what you taught them. They have their own thoughts. They are their own people. They really can do that. Now, at any time, you guys can jump in and ask me any question you want, but I really didn't want to sit here in silence, like all really awkward in the morning. So it doesn't have to be on active versus passive learning. It could be on anything. Stump me. See what you can do. I'm usually pretty good, but there are some things that will stump me. Those things are usually science and math. So if you want to watch me fall, go for those two. Other than that, hit me up with what you got. Until then, I'm just going to keep babbling. So, active versus passive. How do you want your life to be? Do you want your child to find the carrot, like the reward, the sticker chart, whatever it is? That's their incentive, right? So their incentive is to make you happy. Their incentive is to make the teacher happy. Their incentive is to not get bullied. Their intention is to not have anything happen to them. They live constantly then in fight and flight mode. So whichever your child is, maybe they're the flight, they shut down, they're quiet. Active learning is what my youngest needs to learn. It's so hard to teach, especially if they've been already in the school system, because that teaches them to be passive. It teaches them, that no question is wrong to ask. There's no stupid question, but when you ask a question, you're laughed at. Yeah, that's a stupid question, right? If you don't know what you're doing, if you're a little slower than someone else, you're stupid. No, maybe you just learn differently. Totally possible, all right? Learning how to have a say. So one of the things that we have to do here is, especially with Elizabeth, because she was in school for 10 years, he's a fighter and tests boundaries, yes. And that's great. I mean, take that energy and that focus of fighting and direct it. So Regina says, absolutely guiding our children from a young age to make decisions and taking responsibility is imperative. Yes, all three of my kids learn differently, so my approach with each is different though the end goal is the same, to have active children able to do the best that they can as individuals. Exactly. All right. But when you have, my stepson, completely passive life, and now he's 20, and he has no idea what he's doing. No one has ever said, here, you can make this decision, and you can make a mistake. It's okay. We'll be here. Becky says, he's been tagged. Oh, it's ODD. Yes, he just has no use for fake garbage. Yeah, me neither. Totally me neither. So, with oppositional defiant disorder, is it really that they're defiant? Or is it that you're giving them bullshit and they're saying enough? Like, this doesn't work for me. Stop your bullshit. Are they defiant as defined by the goal of someone else? That they just want him to sit down, shut up, and listen. Well, not all of us are really good at that. I'm not. I learned to be quiet and to not speak. And you know what it did? It totally, destroyed who I am. And he doesn't respect adults just because they are bigger. Ooh. Well, good thing he's not my size, because pretty much everybody's bigger than me. Sarah's best friend is taller than me, and she's 10. Yeah. So, I think also being able to teach someone that respect isn't because of size is important. And there are some children that it takes longer with, and it takes more patience with. There are children that have different, disorders, etc. So Brooke says, just logged on, can't watch right now, but I love your lipstick and matches your curtains. I know, isn't that funny? Can't wait to watch later. Always love what you have to say. Awesome, Brooke, thank you. I didn't coordinate this. It just happened. It's actually the only shade of lipstick that I own. So, and I didn't even pick it out. It just sort of is. It's just what's there. And it looks good on camera. So there you go. And it matches the green leaves. It pops. Anyway, so active versus passive, right? So how do we, in small increments, because if your child has to go to public school, Lord knows Lizzie had to. I was a single mom. What the hell was I going to do? I couldn't stay home and do nothing. I lived in Fairfield County, Connecticut. It's not like I could collect unemployment or Social Security. I wasn't disabled. I had to work. So what can you do when your child has to be in that situation, right? Because some of us, that's really what it is. They have to be there. You can ask for their opinion. You can ask for them to be able to make choices on their own. Simple things like in the kitchen, like we talked about earlier. What do you want for dinner? Bring them in. Incorporate them into your life. Incorporate them into making decisions. Do they want to go to that birthday party with Julie? Maybe Julie's not nice. They should have the right to say no. Or maybe they want to go, and Julie's still not nice, but then that's a lesson that they need to learn. But, if you start this reward system, this always cracks me up. And I've done it, so I can say this from experience, the reward system for good behavior. I actually got Sarah's, her psychoeducational thing back when they were talking about her ADHD and her learning disabilities. And it literally says, make sure to catch her being good. What the hell? Okay, just think about that for a second. Catch her being good. Catch her. Catch her is a negative connotation. To catch something is to trap it. So I should trap her being good? The kid's not bad. Maybe she needs to move while she's learning. That doesn't make her bad. That makes her kinesthetic. Maybe she needs to do things a little differently. That's great. Maybe not when you have 30 kids in your classroom. That's not great. I know, Becky, at some point you want me to talk about inclusion, and this is something that I was really thinking about this morning in the shower, 10 minutes before I went on air. And I'm I have pros and cons against that. I think inclusion is great if there's an aid there for a child who has severe disabilities. But it's not great if it's distracting the whole classroom. So then it's gone from passive learning to no learning because everybody's worried about the situation that's happening. This is something I have to actually talk to a friend of mine who has a severely autistic son who is, I think he's 7 or 8 now, and he's like 5'8" and nonverbal and unable to be potty trained, etc. And I want to talk to him before I really have any information on this because I don't know how to deal with that one. I want to be educated. Maybe I'll have him on. He's awesome. So anyway, back to passive and active, or ask me some questions, because that's what today is like ask me anything. So ask me anything. I'll put on my little genie hat. I'd find it someplace. Oh, wait, I bet you it's in the filter, right? So it is just a matter of, how do you see your life being active or passive with your children? I feel like I need like a Swami hat on. All right, guys, get your questions ready because I am searching for the Swami hat. We'll see. I know it's in here. I've seen it. And of course, it doesn't want to give me it. Oh, wait. I have a king hat. All right. It's coming. I can feel it. I want to answer your questions. Nope, it's not. It's totally not coming today. So what do you guys wonder about? Like, here, maybe we'll see if it just works. It's not working today. All right, well, we're going to go without the filters. What do you guys want to know about? This week we have covered, not as much because the puppies were crazy, right? So what do you guys have questions about? Do you have questions about how active versus passive learning works? Do you have questions over anxiety? Do you have questions over, how do you handle that as a parent? How to handle it with your own anxiety? What else did we discuss? I think that's all we discussed this week because really it was a slow week with crazy dogs. Do you have questions about how do you do this? How do you get up every day and keep going when it feels like life's against you? I often, you're going to laugh at me, but I actually write out my biggest fears, and I go through this whole process of determining, is that fear valid? Okay, go ahead and laugh at me, but I like lists and I like black and white things. And no one would believe it because how we homeschool Sarah is very, very relaxed. And that's what Sarah needs because of her disabilities and her vision disorder. I'm actually kind of secretly looking forward to not having it be so relaxed and to be able to plan things and do stuff. Shh, don't tell her that. So what I do is I look at my biggest fears, okay, and I write them down what is the biggest fear, right? And I write down the first 5 or 10. And then I write down the next thing is, what would happen if they came to be, right? And then what are some solutions for that? So I don't know if that helps you guys at all, but that is what I do. And I look at everything. So in regards to getting up and doing this every morning, right? I sit here, I'm live and totally unscripted. My biggest fear, I was being very passive about this. And this is why I bring it up. I was being very, very passive because all these videos I see are so perfect, right? They're all put together perfectly and they're edited and they've got music and they have front things. And it stopped me from doing it. Why? Because of my own fears. Where did my fears come from? They came from being passive. They came from my passive learning experiences and that my life needed to be passive. And then unless it wasn't perfect, it wasn't good enough, which meant I was passive, right? Well, guess what, guys? I don't have to be perfect. I just have to be sort of good enough for me. If you like it, that's awesome. Yay for me. If you don't, so what, right? So here I am, completely unscripted, winging it every day. Because really, let's face it, that's what life is, right? It's completely unscripted. And we wing it from moment to moment. So how can we wing it if our entire life has been passive? Well, we screw up a lot, right? We fall down on our face a lot. We make a lot of bad decisions. I know I did. I can tell you some really crappy decisions I made, like marrying a guy I knew for 4 days, 4 weeks into it, divorced 4 years later. 4 was our magic number, I think. And today not today, but this year we are separated, divorced / whatever, 18 years. Best 18 years of my life. But had I learned how to make decisions earlier, had I learned how to be active in my decision making, had I learned to understand that I have a say in my life, I probably wouldn't have made that decision. So what things can you look at and say, wow, that's really not contributing to their life. I'm not allowing my child to have a say in this. And what's the most frightening thing that's going to happen if they do have a say? They're going to have an opinion. Don't you want them to have an opinion? Or do you really not want them to have an opinion? Like, are you the one that's in charge of their life? Well, if you're in charge of their life, what are they in charge of? And I'm not saying kids should be in charge of everything, because obviously maturity levels and age, etc., dictate whether or not they can handle something. I do not trust a 2-year-old not to run out into the traffic in front of a car. All right? Yeah, it's not that. Age-appropriate responsibility. Let's just get that right out on the table. So Brooke says, I want to know verbiage to use when I can't figure out what the underlying needs of my children are. I want to meet the real needs, but I often don't know how to get them to explain it to me. And all I'm seeing is their behaviors. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. We were dealing with that all day yesterday with Sarah. And she's almost 11 in a few weeks. Almost a month from Sunday. She'll be 11. But all day long it was behavior instead of verbiage. And she really didn't know. I mean, she was literally, we were having birthday dinner with my dad last night, and she was like literally crawling on top of my lap, like a 2-year-old. So I looked at her, I said, honey, I really, really see. So I see that you need to be held. So use the word see, because that means you are observing. You're observing. I see that you are overwhelmed. I see that you are upset. I see that you are angry. I see that you have a need to be held. Start with what you see, because it could be that that's really not what their need is. And then, you can say, is that correct? How can I help you with that? They're not always going to know, but knowing that you can ask, and then you can give some suggestions. So for example, last night, Sarah had a really hard day yesterday. I mean, we're like now tracking her moods in this really cool mood tracker, and she's really diligent about it. And she went from like being sad to angry to so angry to clingy, and she's able then to identify these words. Now she's almost 11. If your kids are younger, that can be a little bit more difficult. So you really have to watch their behavior, and you have to provide the verbiage for them. There is this great chart. I can find it, and if you want, let me know. I'll put a link in the comment section that actually my husband's therapist gave him, because he can't identify emotions. He was never allowed to have them. And it's actually this entire page they're almost like emojis, but not really, of faces with the description of what that emotion is underneath it. And we literally, I used to have him go to the refrigerator where I kept it and point to the one that he was feeling, because he had no vocabulary for it, because he was never allowed to feel emotions. WASP culture, you're not allowed to feel. You're not allowed to discuss it. And so now he lives with me. He was like, well, what are you feeling? What are you going through? How can I help you? And he's like, just shut up. I don't know. It doesn't have a word. I just feel like, oh, or I just feel, or I just,